Before I call the honourable member for Barton, I remind the House that this is the honourable member's first speech, and I ask the House to extend the usual courtesies. The member for Barton.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Mr Speaker, it was in this chamber I experienced one of the most remarkable moments of my life. It was in that gallery just up there. It feels like it was just yesterday, but I will tell you that story of truth-telling and generosity in a moment. Balam Ambul, Iorogu, Nanawal Narambi Yunjamara, Nadu Bang Marang Nadu Nyaha, Winhanga Naha, Nalangbang Nangwang Dang, Nadu Biap, Yugantha, Burang A Nawal. Nadu Yan Yam Gidyal, Yinjamara, Mandang, Narangunja. Mr Speaker, I've said in the language of the Wiradjuri, my people, I pay respect to the ancient Ngunnawal and Narambi. I say this good day. I am giving my first speech, and I am deeply moved. I have journeyed to another place, a powerful place. I am one person. I wish in this House to be polite, to be respectful, to be gentle and be polite. I am thankful, happy, I could weep. However, Mr Speaker, I say to my elders and I say to you that the last bit may not always apply in question time. I mention respectfully the traditional owners of the seat of Barton, 3 clans of the Eora, the Bidjigal, the Gwagal and the Badigal, custodians of the land from the Cooks River to the shores of Brighton, to the sands and out to the Georges River. Mr Speaker, it is strong country. And to the traditional owners of all the lands from which members of this chamber and the other place come, these lands are, always were and always will be Aboriginal land. Sovereignty never ceded, Mr Speaker. So what was that remarkable moment in this chamber? Many of you are actually here. It was the first sitting of the new government. It was the 13th of February 2008. Kevin Rudd was the new Prime Minister, Jenny Macklin, Minister for Indigenous Affairs, and Brendan Nelson was the opposition leader. Mr Speaker, our nation had been holding its breath for a long time, waiting for 3 words: we are sorry. The stubborn refusal of the then Prime Minister to apologise for policies which had ripped many thousands of Aboriginal children from their family, culture and country, the devastating effects still felt today. But, Mr Speaker, around the perimeter of this chamber sat some of those children, now old people, still wearing the scars of forced removal on their faces, and they were joined by all surviving Prime Ministers, bar one. But finally, as the words rang out, across this chamber, this land and around the world, for this we are sorry, the country cried and began to breathe again. As the speeches concluded, 2 women stood up and handed the Prime Minister, the Leader of the Opposition, the Minister, an empty coolamon, and I beg the indulgence of the House. An empty coolamon. It was the most gracious and generous thing I had ever seen. It was profound, Mr Speaker, a gesture that made us all better people. Friends, a coolamon is what we carried our babies in, which made it such an amazing, generous thing to do. I carry this empty coolamon into this place today, a reminder of that moment, of the power we exercise in this building today, and it must be for the good of all, it must be gracious, but that has not always been so, but it can be. That day of truth, it was told in this place, and the power of generosity was writ large. So, Mr. Speaker, the significance of coming down from that gallery up there to the floor of this chamber is not lost on me. Members, in this term of Parliament, I want us all to be able to stand in this place knowing that the document on which it was founded finally tells the truth. Recognition of First People in our nation's constitution is the next step in the path we are walking towards a country that can look itself in the eye, knowing that we have come of age. Mr. Speaker, fundamentally reconciliation is about three things. It's about reciprocity, it's about restitution, and it's about truth-telling. One of the bravest statements I ever heard was in the opening ceremony of the 1997 Reconciliation Convention in Melbourne. The 10-point plan and the winding back of native title debate was raging, and the chair of the council at that time is now Senator Patrick Dodson. I was on the executive committee. I'm not sure if Patrick liked it or didn't, but I think I did okay, and I think he did like it. He was an amazing chair. But Senator Dodson said at the opening of that convention in the presence of the world media, there can never be reconciliation without social justice. Nor, Mr. Speaker, is the significance of the first speech lost on me. It is defining, it sets out what has made you, what you believe in and what you stand for. It talks about the seat and the people whose hopes, hurts, aspirations and loves you carry into this place. It talks of the deep affection you have for those people. Because of the significance, I carry into this chamber this cloak. This cloak was made by my Wiradjuri sister, Lynette Riley, who will sing us into this place now. Thank you, Lynette. This cloak, Mr. Speaker, tells my story. It charts my life. On it is my clan totem, the goanna, and my personal totem, the white cockatoo, a messenger bird and very noisy, Mr. Speaker. Let me share with you a little of what has made me. In 2010, I returned to the little town I grew up in. It was called Whitton. I'm a freshwater kid from the Riverina. I learned to swim in irrigation channels, and we shared with those in that water yabbies, freshwater mussels, leeches, red-belly blacks, and I suspect considerable amounts of chemical, which explains the constant boils and hives I had as a child. It was the 150th anniversary of the Whitton Public School. I was a cabinet minister at the time, and I thought I looked pretty flash. A man a little older than me, I guess he would have been one of the big kids when I was at school, said to me, "You know, Linda, the day you were born was one of the darkest days in the town this town has ever seen. You know, Linda, the day you were born was one of the darkest days this town has ever seen." I was so shocked I could not respond. You see, Mr. Speaker, despite being more than 50 years on, I was born at a time when a white woman having an Aboriginal baby was shocking, and doubly so if that woman was not married. I was born at a time when the Australian government knew how many sheep there were, but not how many Aboriginal people. I was 10 years old before the '67 referendum fixed that. The first decade of my life was spent as a non-citizen. I was raised by my two very brave people who no doubt were made to pay for the bravery and generosity they displayed. My great-aunt Letitia Lang Nina and her brother Billy. They were of Scottish heritage, and in the latter part of their life I've wondered often had they not stepped up to raise me to where my life would be now. I loved them very much and experienced their passing and grief early in life. I was taken in really after their death by Coral Smith and her family. Coral's daughter Barbara is my oldest friend on earth, 51 years. I spoke to her on the weekend. Friendships over one's whole life are rare things indeed. I didn't meet my Wiradjuri father until I was 28. His first words were to me, "I hope I don't disappoint you." His name was Nonnie Ingram, Lawrence Ingram, of the great Wiradjuri Ingram clan. Nonnie and his wonderful wife Lorna had 10 children, 10 brothers and sisters, Mr. Speaker, I did not know existed. We grew up 40 minutes apart. The power of racism and exclusion were not things you could see, but you certainly felt them. But I had 2 sets of brothers and sisters. My mother married a wonderful man called Fred Strachey. They had 4 children, 2 brothers gone now, but my sister Kim is here today. I'm so thrilled you're here, Kim. It means a lot. Fred spent his life serving in the Air Force and served in World War II. But I would ask all of you listening this afternoon to imagine what it was like for a 13-year-old Aboriginal girl in a school classroom, taught that her ancestors were the closest thing to Stone Age man on earth, and struggling with your identity. But being in this chamber today feels a long way from that time, and from the man in the schoolyard at the anniversary. Well, here's to you, mate. In many ways, these experiences have been the catalyst for my subsequent life as an advocate for education and social justice. The Aboriginal part of my story is important. It is the core of who I am, but I will not be stereotyped and I will not be pigeonholed. Let me tell you of the Wiradjuri story. In Wiradjuri law, Mr. Speaker, Biami is the creation spirit. He is the source of both our physical and moral landscape. The story of invasion and conquest for the Wiradjuri is a brutal one. The deadly art of poisoning water holes and flowers began in Wiradjuri country. Massacre sites are dotted all over my lands. The scars are evident for all of us to see. In 1823, martial law was declared in Bathurst after Windradyne and his warriors waged a fierce war of resistance. But 4 months later, over 1,000 Wiradjuri were dead in sanctioned murder. In 1842, during the Second Wiradjuri Wars, one horror saw all but one young boy survive when settlers opened fire on a group taking shelter on an island amongst the reeds in the creek of the Murrumbidgee River. That creek is now known as Poison Watering Hole Creek, and their sheltering place, Mr. Speaker, is called Murdering Island. On Saturday, I drove over that bridge and that creek. I stopped the car, I got out, and my blood ran cold. You see, Mr. Speaker, I am of the Murrumbidgee Wiradjuri. In Barton, from the beach to Brighton Le Sands, you can stand and look towards Botany Bay, where the First Fleet in 1788 first entered these shores. Settlement or invasion is a matter of perspective, whether you're on the shore or on the boats in the middle of the bay. But I spoke earlier of truth-telling. Perhaps another great act of honesty and healing will be a permanent remembering of those frontier wars just down the road at our National War Memorial. Mr. Speaker, The chamber I have come from in New South Wales proudly hangs the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander flags. Symbolism is important. I know symmetry is important in this place, but perhaps we could think that once we get constitutional recognition, we could add another 2 flags to this chamber, coloured red, gold, black, white, green and blue. The colours and the flags of the 2 first peoples of this nation. But what I will say, Mr Speaker, is I intend to bring the fighting Wiradjuri spirit into this place, and this mob behind me know what that is about. I will bring that spirit into this place for the people of Barton, for First Peoples, and for those great Labor values of social justice and equality for all people. I entered this place as a representative of the people of Barton, a community I've been proud to live in for more than 20 years. If there is a god of demography, it is one of the greatest ironies that the seat named after the architect of the White Australia policy has become one of the most multicultural in the country. Over half of the people in Barton were born overseas, almost 10% in China. We have a well-established post-World War II Greek and European community, a thriving Arabic-speaking community, a rapidly growing Nepalese community, Macedonian, Indian, you name it, people from every corner of the globe. Barton, Mr Speaker, is a kaleidoscope of languages, ethnicities and cultures. I'm not sure what Sir Edmund would think of the ethnic wonderland being represented in this place today by, of all people, me and a Koori woman to boot. From Campsie to Kaimea, from Beverly Hills to Brighton, this electorate couldn't be a more shining example of what our modern Australia looks like. For the benefit of those in this House and the other place who doubt it, I want to place here on record, we are a stronger community because of this diversity. We are better for our differences, and we are richer for all the broader cultural experience that it affords us. The underpinning of small business in the Barton electorate are by the people that I refer to. We all have fantastic stories from election day, but let me share with the House with one. It's Hurstville Public School. It's 5:45, it's dark, it's cold. The booth is being packed up and a car pulls up. There's a very old woman in that car. She needs help to walk. It's a long way across that cold, dark playground. Her daughter says, "Mum, don't worry, we can just pay the fine." This old woman says, "No, I'm voting. This is history, and friends, it is history indeed." That, my friends, is Barton, and we made history together. The tireless advocacy of James Zhao, Lily and little Chloe for their Chinese Australian community. Barton is the endless generosity of Khalil and his family at Ibrahim's Pastry in Rockdale. The tireless advocacy of James Zhao, Lily and little Chloe for their Chinese Australian community. It is the enthusiasm of Harry Donalis and Nia Katris for their Greek Orthodox community across the region, or the passion of families like Joe Awada and the proud Arabic community. It's just some of the stories. There are so many more. In fact, Mr Speaker, for my money, there is only one division that counts for anything in our electorate. It's the one between the Canterbury Bulldogs and the St George Dragons. My office and I are already preparing a public response should both teams play in the grand final next year. And I've already told my grim-faced media advisor that I will remain a Doggies fan, but a true friend of the Red Vs. Truly, though, both teams have a long and proud history in Barton. And like all good sporting clubs, of which there are many, they aren't just something to barrack behind. Teams like Dennis Leither's City Suns in Rockdale, Vic, Nick and the Cooks River Titans, these are the clubs that glue a community together. And Barton, Mr Speaker, after a brief flirt with the Liberals, is firmly back in the Labor fold by 8.4 3%. Because people in our community know that the invisible hand of the market cares little for the needs of the most disadvantaged. They recognise that a government's job is to ensure services are provided, whether it is education, healthcare or social assistance. Governments cannot simply outsource its responsibility. Rhetoric about the evils of government intervention mean nothing to a mother in Campsie escaping domestic violence and searching for a bed that night. As a school teacher, as a member of the New South Wales Anti-Discrimination Board, as a Director-General, as a representative of the First Peoples in the United Nations, as a local member, as a minister responsible for children at risk, as a minister responsible for women, I've seen why government intervention is necessary. We cannot sit on our hands in places like these, hoping that it will be so. Government has a role to serve and to lead. Throughout my political career and before, I've been consistent. Much work of government is important, but nothing more so than education. Education is not a silver bullet, but it's the closest thing we've got to deal with our social ills. But our parliament must commit to more specific goals too. Things like lifting the birth weight of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander children, an increase of 191 grams could change lives. Reducing the rate of juvenile incarceration must be a priority, because we cannot be satisfied that this is a fair country while so many of our young people, many of them Aboriginal, are locked up. The Royal Commission has been announced, but I suspect it will be difficult to restrict to the Northern Territory. I think we're already seeing that. There is no justification for the incarceration of children as young as 10, not when we know that getting kids to school and intervening early works so much more effectively and it is better economics. The challenge of domestic violence in our communities is a national crisis. Strong rhetoric must be matched with strong action and leadership. And we should take seriously our custodianship of land, and I know that we do. We cannot leave this task somehow to the never-never with our children. Land care groups like the Mud Crabs and the Cooks River Valley Association in Barton know this all too well. On issues of political debate and policy, the message from those in our electorates and outside has been clear. People have decried what they see as a lack of sincerity and a lack of good faith in our political conversation. They see it when some members of this parliament rally behind their right to hate speech, but say nothing of the effect this will have on our most marginalised communities. Too often these calls to amend the Racial Discrimination Act from those from whom this kind of discrimination is totally alien. Well, I can tell them it's hurtful, and to me and many people in this chamber, in the galleries today, it is not alien. People don't ask for much from us. They want to be heard. They want to be treated with respect and empathy. These things are Labor values, the ones I will be proud to carry into this place. So, Mr. Speaker, why Labor? Well, my story talks for itself. Raised by a boundary rider, a drover and a field hand, shaped by the combination of love and adversity, politically blooded in the Aboriginal rights movement, and embraced by the strength of Labor and the Labor movement, there was never a question of being anything else. Just some final reflections and thank yous. I have been in public life for some time, but I have to admit that with the frenetic pace of a local campaign, I did not contemplate the response that the election of the first Aboriginal woman to the House of Representatives would get. I've been overwhelmed. I have received countless letters, emails and calls, all heartfelt and generous, some of which contain very flattering words about me as a role model. If this is true, it is only possible thanks to the whole role models and the people, the guides, who have allowed me to come into this place resting on their shoulders. In truth, I come to this place not only through my own labour. I have travelled paths blazed by those before me and resting on those shoulders around me. So to the impossible task of recognising those shoulders I've leaned on, and thank those who have come on this journey with me. In my valedictory speech, I named some very close personal friends, and many of them are in the gallery today. To those trusted friends, you know who you are. Many of you have travelled from interstate to be here, including Charmaine and Rhonda. You have stuck by me and held me up through the best and the worst of times. Each of you have been a gift, and I hope my love for you in return has been the same. I am touched by a number of my former colleagues from the New South Wales Parliament who have joined me here this afternoon, and others that have sent their good wishes, including our local representatives Chris Minns, his wife Anna, Steve Camper, his wife Magda, as well as Sophie Kotsis and her family, whom I see in the gallery today, the best little young campaigners you've ever seen. And of course, Shuket Musulmani and the people that Shuket works with so closely in the Arabic community. Other state MPs who have supported me has been invaluable. I see Meredith Bergman in the gallery, a true set of shoulders I have lent on. Guy Zangari, Tanya Mahalik, Linda Vols, Ernest Wong, Jihad Dib, Anna Watson and Joe Halen, who I think is here today as well. I'm sorry if I've missed somebody. You can throw something at me later, but I've tried to do my best. I can't mention everyone, but if you have not been mentioned as a former colleague, you know what you mean to me. I note, of course, Greg Warren, the member for Campbelltown, is here in the gallery with us this afternoon. Thank you for coming, Greg, and for representing Luke Foley. The fantastic people from the local government areas like Bill Savranovsky, Nick Catras, Andrew Tunis, Joe Awada, Dominic Sim and Tarek Ibrahim. And to the local Aboriginal community and leaders from many different organisations I can see in the gallery, from Canberra and further afar, thank you so much for rallying and being here today, led of course by the Queen and Martin. The state party leaders and premiers I have had the pleasure of serving with, Bob Carr, Morris Yema, my good friend Nathan Rees, Christina Keneally, whom I see around the place, John Robertson and our future Premier Luke Foley, I say thank you. To the support and encouragement from my federal colleagues was remarkable throughout the campaign. To our leader Bill Shorten and to Tanya Plebiscite, it's been difficult to put into words the confidence and the inspiration you provided in the campaign, and the campaign you ran with everyone else was about people, and that is why we were so successful. Tony Burke, my neighbour, Jenny Macklin, my old friend, Jenny McAllister for braving the Hurstville pre-poll, and trust me, that is braving a pre-poll. To many people that called, like Stephen Jones, and to so many others in the federal team, thank you so much for welcoming me and making me feel part of who you are. A very special mention to Anthony Albanese and Carmel Tebbit, whose belief in me goes back a long time. Political mentors and close friends both. Throughout the campaign, I'm nearly finished, support and lots of cheering from the New South Wales branch of the Labor Party by way of the unstoppable Kayla Murnane, Rose Jackson, John Graham and Pat Garcia here today. From the Union Movement by way of Mel Gatfield, Mark Boyd, Erin Watt at United Voice, as well as Michael Tull and Sarah Hunt from the CPSU. My campaign team led by a young man I now call a friend, Ed McDougall. People put their lives on hold, as everyone did in all of our campaigns. People like Leon Punn, Di Ford, Cheryl Han, Reuben Freelander, Lua Mustafa, Callista Covell, Mark Buttigieg and his wonderful wife, Kirsten Andrews, Ross Bennett and the ever-present Maria Caston, Mitch Wilson, R.M. Macbeth and many others. The great members of the Australian Labor Party, your devotion to our cause, to social justice and to equity continues to energise me. To the branch members of Barton, what an amazing group of people you are. People like Daryl and David, Barton Campaign's own odd couple. Irene, Di, Luna, Janet, Janice, Binner, Chris, Lewis, David, Sue, Ron, Alice, Esther, David, I know it's long, but I'm going to say it, Robin, George and Fran Rees. There are too many on the list to mention. People like Robin, Ron, Lewis, Callista, Alice, and many local leaders of organisation. In conclusion, just about, Mr Speaker, the incredible young Labor team, Lewis, Chris, Shannon, Oliver, Luke, James, Zach, Isabella, Ella, and 300 additional people that worked on the campaign. Thank you. To the supporters in our community like Peter and Elizabeth Antonopoulos and Bill Mogius, thank you. The fact is, Mr Speaker, I can't name everyone, but for all of you, your help, your early mornings, and let there never be another winter campaign, and the hard work was appreciated. My children, Binny and Willirai, my pride and love for you is more than all the stars in the sky. My partner in life, the late Rick Farley. I don't know, Rick, what you think about me sitting in this place, but I do know our country is a poorer place for having lost you. To the people of Barton, you have put your faith in me, and I will not let you down. When I entered state politics all those years ago, I made two promises to those that had elected me, that I would always work hard and I would always do my best. And today in this chamber, I make those same promises again to the people of Barton, to my party, to my colleagues, to this place, and to the people of Australia. I spoke earlier of what it was like to be a young Aboriginal girl in the 1960s, sitting in a classroom and being told that my capacity was limited by my race and that my potential was capped by expectation. Thanks to the voters in Barton, I hope that there are young people who sit in classrooms like Chloe Nowak from my hometown of Leeton here today, whose imaginations are not so limited. If I can stand in this place, so can they. Never let anyone tell you you are limited by anything. Mr Speaker, in 1927, a Wiradjuri man named Jimmy Clements, or Nanga, and his friend John Noble walked for a week over the mountains to Canberra from Brungle Mission. Mr Speaker, that mission is where my father comes from. They had decided that they wanted to attend the opening of the Provisional Parliament. When the local police saw their attire, they were asked to move on, but the crowd in front of the old Parliament House would not hear of it. They stood up for Nanga and John, and eventually they stayed. I'd like to think of the electorate today as a bit like that crowd, and thanks to them, there are more Aboriginal voices in this place than ever before. Bonner, Ridgeway, Wyatt, Lindgren, Lambie, Dodson, McCarthy, and thanks to the good people of Barton, Mr Speaker, Burney.
I'll call the member for Fisher in a moment.